There's a reason Sigma INFJs move through the world quietly, yet leave people unsettled without trying. It isn't their kindness, their calm, or their silence. It's the psychological advantages they carry beneath the surface, the ones they never reveal, the ones most people will never understand until it's too late. These aren't traits you brag about. They're traits that shape how people treat you, how you read situations, and how you navigate life with a level of clarity others mistake for intuition or luck. But if you don't know you have them, you can't use them. And if you miss this video, you'll miss the 8 advantages that explain why you've never fit the mold, why you see through people instantly, and why your presence disrupts the dynamics around you more than you realize. Before we continue, answer this in the comments. Do you think your silence protects you or exposes others? And if you're new here, subscribe, especially if you want to understand the parts of your mind you've never been able to put into words. They read people's intentions before their behavior reveals them. For Sigma INFJs, understanding someone doesn't begin with what they say or how they act. It begins with the subtle shifts they don't realize they're broadcasting. Long before a person makes a decision, long before their actions take shape in the physical world, the Sigma INFJ has already read the emotional blueprint behind it. They notice micro-intentions, those fleeting internal movements that most people never detect. A hesitation in the eyes, a slight change in posture, a softening or tightening of tone, the way someone's energy enters the room and settles. To others, these details are invisible. To the Sigma INFJ, they're the earliest signs of someone's inner truth breaking the surface. This ability isn't mystical, and it isn't guesswork. It is the result of a lifetime spent studying human nature, quietly, deeply, and without interruption. While others talk, react, or try to impress, the Sigma INFJ listens. They absorb the emotional temperature, the unspoken motives, the patterns beneath personality. People reveal themselves long before they intend to, and the Sigma INFJ catches the first spark of that revelation. They can sense when kindness is genuine or strategic, when confidence is real or compensatory, when respect is honest or simply a mask hiding envy or hidden agendas. It's not that they're suspicious. They are simply attuned to the undercurrent of human behavior in a way that feels effortless. Because they perceive intention so early, Sigma INFJs rarely get blindsided. They walk through social environments as if guided by an internal map no one else can see. They can tell when someone is approaching with sincerity or when a conversation is a setup for manipulation. They know when someone's enthusiasm is authentic or when it is masking insecurity, competition, or hidden resentment. Others react to behavior. The Sigma INFJ reacts to motive, placing them several steps ahead without ever needing to confront or expose anything directly. And perhaps what makes this ability unsettling to others is that the Sigma INFJ never announces it. They don't call people out. They don't warn them that they've been understood. They simply adjust, quietly, intelligently, and with an ease that feels almost supernatural. By the time someone's behavior finally reveals their true intentions, the Sigma INFJ has already known for a long time and has already decided exactly how to move. They stay emotionally detached while others expose themselves. Sigma INFJs possess a rare psychological discipline. They can observe without absorbing, listen without reacting, and remain present without being pulled into anyone's emotional gravity. While most people reveal pieces of themselves through impulsive reactions, defensive responses, or attempts to impress, the Sigma INFJ sits in a quiet, grounded state that invites honesty without ever demanding it. Their detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. They don't rush to fill silence, don't compete for emotional space, and don't feel the need to prove themselves. That neutrality becomes a mirror, and people inevitably project their unfiltered selves onto it. In social settings, this creates an almost cinematic dynamic. Others begin talking, sharing, confessing, sometimes more than they intend. They feel the INFJ's stillness and mistake it for agreement, empathy, or even vulnerability. What they fail to realize is that the INFJ has not given anything away. While others speak from emotion, insecurity, or impulse, the Sigma INFJ remains strategically calm, analyzing the deeper layers beneath each sentence. They are emotionally present but psychologically untouched. This internal stillness allows them to see what drives someone long before that person understands it themselves. Because the Sigma INFJ doesn't react in predictable ways, people reveal more. They keep talking to fill the silence, trying to get some kind of response. They share opinions to see if the INFJ agrees. They tell stories to test boundaries. Without realizing it, they uncover their motivations, wounds, fears, ambitions, all while the Sigma INFJ observes quietly, gathering a level of understanding most people never reach. The INFJ's emotional detachment prevents manipulation, pressure, or influence from clouding their perception. They see everything clearly because they don't get pulled into the emotional currents swirling around them. This detachment is often misunderstood as aloofness, but it is actually one of their greatest strengths. It keeps them immune to emotional traps, subtle manipulation, or social chaos. While others expose who they are through reactions, the INFJ exposes nothing. They reveal neither approval nor rejection, neither excitement nor discomfort. Only a controlled presence that gives nothing away, and that imbalance of openness is what makes people uneasy. They sense that the INFJ sees them deeply while remaining unreadable in return. In the end, this ability becomes a psychological advantage few can compete with. While everyone else reveals themselves piece by piece, the Sigma INFJ remains the only one in the room whose truth stays quietly protected. They analyze patterns with a depth most people never notice. Sigma INFJs don't simply observe what people do, they study why they do it. Every gesture, every hesitation, every shift in tone becomes a thread in a much larger psychological tapestry they are constantly weaving. While most people see isolated moments, the Sigma INFJ sees the continuity beneath them. The habits, the emotional reflexes, the contradictions, the unspoken motives. They track these layers effortlessly, not out of suspicion, but because their mind is wired to seek meaning in subtle rhythms. A single conversation can reveal more to them than years of interactions reveal to others, because their attention penetrates the surface and locks onto what actually drives behavior. They notice when someone laughs too quickly, when a smile doesn't reach the eyes, when certainty masks insecurity, when kindness is calculated, when confidence is performative. They store these details, not as judgments, but as data, pieces of a psychological equation that gradually solves itself in the background of their mind. This is why people often feel figured out around them without knowing how it happened. Sigma INFJs don't need dramatic reveals or confession-like conversations. They assemble a portrait from fragments others dismiss as irrelevant. Over time, this portrait becomes startlingly accurate, granting them insight that feels almost supernatural from the outside. What makes this ability even more powerful is that they analyze patterns longitudinally, not just in the moment. They notice what changed, what stayed the same, what intensified, what contradicted itself. A person's behavior over weeks or months tells them more than any direct statement ever could. They see the emotional story arc behind someone's life, the unresolved wounds, the repeated mistakes, the invisible desires guiding choices. And they decode these arcs without effort, because the INFJ mind is constantly scanning for deeper structure beneath chaos. This pattern awareness gives them an advantage in relationships, careers, and social dynamics. They can anticipate outcomes before others see the signs. They sense when someone is drifting away emotionally long before the person admits it. They detect when trust is shifting, when resentment is growing, when a mask is slipping, when manipulation is forming. Nothing happens suddenly in their world. Everything has a trail, and they follow it to its origin. That foresight makes them almost impossible to deceive. But their depth comes with a hidden cost. They carry knowledge they often cannot express without overwhelming others. People don't realize how transparent they become until the INFJ gently withdraws or shifts their approach, a quiet signal that the pattern has been fully understood. By then, the INFJ has already seen everything they needed to see, not through confrontation, but through the quiet mastery of pattern recognition that few will ever understand. They sense power dynamics instantly and adjust without being detected. Sigma INFJs walk into a room and immediately map the invisible hierarchy, not the one people perform, but the one that actually governs behavior. They notice who speaks with borrowed confidence and who speaks with earned authority. They register who seeks control through intimidation and who leads through presence. They see who is shrinking themselves to avoid conflict, who is masking insecurity with dominance, and who is quietly observing the field just like they are. Before a single word is exchanged, they already understand the energetic terrain, the strategies at play, and the emotional leverage points that shape the interaction. But what sets Sigma INFJs apart is how subtly they adapt to these dynamics. They don't challenge power directly, nor do they submit to it. Instead, they shift their energy with surgical precision. A slight change in posture, a quieter tone, a sharper level of focus. Adjustments so minimal that no one consciously notices, yet everyone reacts to. They blend into whatever role grants them the most clarity. Sometimes the silent observer, sometimes the grounding presence, sometimes the unexpected challenger. Their influence is never loud, but it is unmistakable. They navigate the room not by forcing respect, but by positioning themselves where control naturally flows. Behind this ability is an intuitive radar for human motives. They sense when someone uses charm as manipulation, when someone hides behind authority, when someone clings to status to mask emotional instability. And when the dynamic shifts, even subtly, the INFJ senses it instantly. They detect the power grab before it becomes visible. They feel the resentment forming before words change. They know when someone is testing boundaries or seeking dominance, and they adjust their emotional stance to neutralize the attempt long before it succeeds. This makes them uniquely difficult to overpower. Manipulators rely on predictable emotional responses, but INFJs provide none. Aggressive personalities expect pushback or submission, but INFJs offer silence and precision. People who thrive on attention can't extract it from them. People who rely on intimidation lose their advantage because the INFJ refuses to react. Their stillness becomes strategy. Their calm becomes authority. Their perception becomes quiet control. And because they operate so subtly, others rarely realize how much the INFJ has read, anticipated, and maneuvered. By the time anyone understands the power balance has shifted, the INFJ has already positioned themselves where influence flows naturally, unseen, unchallenged, and completely in control of their participation. They can disappear emotionally without warning, breaking any manipulation. Sigma INFJs possess a rare psychological mechanism, the ability to detach so cleanly and so quietly that the person attempting to influence them feels as though they have been speaking to a shadow. One moment, the INFJ is present, warm, attentive, offering empathy, depth, and the illusion of emotional availability. The next moment, something shifts, subtle but unmistakable. Their eyes become unreadable. Their energy withdraws inward. Their emotional presence, the very thing manipulators depend on, dissolves like mist. Nothing dramatic happens. No argument, no announcement, no confrontation. Just a sudden emptiness where connection used to be. This emotional disappearance is not a reaction, it is an instinctive protection system. When the INFJ senses a pattern of manipulation, a hidden agenda, a guilt tactic, a subtle push to control, their intuition alerts them long before the behavior becomes obvious. Their psyche recognizes the danger and pulls them back into inner distance. What confuses people is how silently it happens. Manipulators, who rely on emotional hooks, suddenly find nothing to pull on to their usual strategies. Pressure, charm, guilt, intensity fall flat because the INFJ is no longer participating emotionally. It feels like trying to grab water with a closed fist. To the INFJ, this detachment feels like stepping out of a storm into a calm, quiet room. They observe objectively without emotional fog. They see the intention behind the words, the pattern behind the charm, the motive behind the guilt. The moment they detach, manipulation loses its power because manipulation only works on those who are emotionally engaged. The INFJ's disappearance creates a void where influence cannot reach. And because they vanish internally long before they walk away physically, people often sense the loss before they understand it. What makes this ability so unsettling is that it cannot be controlled from the outside. You cannot force an INFJ to reconnect, reason them back into vulnerability, or pressure them into emotional engagement. Once they've detached, they become untouchable, silent, centered, and entirely self-contained. Manipulators feel it instantly: the shift in energy, the sudden lack of access, the absence of emotional leverage. It is the psychological equivalent of a door closing without a sound. And when an INFJ disappears this way, the relationship dynamic changes permanently. The manipulator loses their grip, their confidence cracks, and the INFJ emerges stronger, clear-eyed, unmanipulated, and more powerful than the other person ever realized. They influence environments quietly by shifting the emotional tone. Sigma INFJs do not walk into a room trying to command attention, yet the atmosphere rearranges itself around them. It begins subtly: a silence that grows more focused, a tension that softens, a chaotic energy that suddenly feels embarrassed to exist. They do not speak loudly, they do not posture, and they never compete for dominance. Their influence happens through presence, not performance. When they enter a space, their emotional clarity functions like a tuning fork. Other people's tones adjust without realizing why. Someone who is anxious speaks more slowly. Someone who is loud lowers their voice. Someone who is hiding something feels exposed. The shift is invisible but unmistakable. This influence comes from their ability to read emotional frequencies instantly. They don't just see behavior, they sense undercurrents. Irritation disguised as humor, insecurity hidden behind confidence, resentment buried under politeness. And because they perceive the truth beneath the noise, they respond to the core of the room rather than the chaos on the surface. Their calm presence becomes an anchor. People unconsciously synchronize with it, the way a crowd instinctively mirrors someone who is centered and unshaken. The INFJ never forces the shift. It happens because their inner stability highlights everyone else's internal imbalance. In environments filled with ego, their quiet authenticity disrupts the social hierarchy. Loud personalities become strangely reserved. Those who rely on dominance feel their influence waver. Pretenders become uneasy, sensing that their performance isn't landing the way it usually does. The INFJ's grounded energy creates a psychological contrast, a reminder that depth exists, that honesty exists, that composure exists. And people react. Some become calmer, others become self-conscious, a few become threatened, but every person in the room feels it, whether they can articulate it or not. Their emotional influence is not manipulation. It is a side effect of seeing clearly and feeling deeply. They don't push anyone to behave differently. They simply hold their internal tone with such steadiness that it recalibrates the environment around them. When they're peaceful, the room settles. When they're observant, people start revealing themselves. When they're detached, conversations lose their performative shine. It's a quiet form of leadership, invisible, unspoken, and often misunderstood, but profoundly powerful. Their presence does what words cannot. It shifts the emotional weather, turning storms into stillness and noise into revelation. And the most remarkable part is this: they influence without trying, without speaking, and without ever stepping into the spotlight. Their energy does the work for them. They learn from pain faster than others learn from experience. For Sigma INFJs, pain is not just an event, it is information. While most people resist discomfort, deny it, or repeat the same mistakes until consequences force change, a Sigma INFJ processes pain with forensic precision. One emotional wound teaches them what others need years of trial and error to understand. They internalize lessons instantly because they don't just observe pain, they dissect it. They study its origin, its patterns, its hidden message, and once they grasp the truth behind it, they never walk into the same fire twice. Their growth curve is steep because they treat pain like a teacher instead of an enemy. This accelerated learning comes from how deeply they feel everything. A disappointment others would shrug off becomes for them a silent map, revealing what to avoid, who to stop trusting, and what boundary needs reinforcement. They sit with the discomfort instead of running from it. They replay the moment in their mind, analyze the emotional landscape, and extract meaning from the smallest details. A hesitation in someone's voice, a shift in tone, a pattern of disrespect they ignored. They do not waste their suffering, they convert it into clarity. And once clarity arrives, their inner world reshapes itself instantly and permanently. Pain also strengthens their intuition. Every betrayal becomes a blueprint for detecting red flags earlier. Every heartbreak sharpens their understanding of human behavior. Every failure teaches them how to carry themselves with more resilience and less attachment. Where others keep falling for similar situations, Sigma INFJs evolve. They outgrow entire phases of their lives in a single moment of awakening. Their growth is not gradual, it is transformative, triggered by insight that strikes with the force of revelation. This makes them intimidating to people who expect them to remain naive or controllable. What sets them apart is not that they avoid pain, but that they absorb it without letting it define them. Pain becomes fuel. Pain becomes instruction. Pain becomes a doorway to a higher version of themselves. And because they extract meaning so thoroughly, the wound closes quickly, replaced by wisdom, by strategy, by a deeper understanding of themselves and others. They rise from painful moments with sharper boundaries, stronger instincts, and an unshakable sense of self. While others repeat cycles, Sigma INFJs break them. While others need time to mature, they evolve in silence. And those who once underestimated them eventually realize this truth. A Sigma INFJ who has learned from pain becomes someone no one can mislead, manipulate, or break again. They remain unpredictable because they reveal nothing they don't want seen. A Sigma INFJ moves through the world like a paradox, present yet unreadable, warm yet impenetrable. What unsettles people most is that no matter how close they get, they can never fully map the INFJ's inner landscape. Every reaction is intentional, every expression is measured, every word carries only the meaning the INFJ chooses to offer. Nothing more. This controlled visibility makes them unpredictable because people can't anticipate their emotional responses, their next move, or even their true thoughts. The INFJ shows only what serves the moment, not what exposes their core. Their unpredictability is not a game. It is self-preservation crafted through years of observing how people misuse information. They learned early that letting the wrong person inside can cost them peace, energy, and identity, so they constructed a silent system. Reveal just enough to communicate, but never enough to be predictable. When someone thinks they've understood them, the INFJ shifts. When someone assumes they know their limits, the INFJ surpasses them. When someone tries to manipulate them, the INFJ disappears emotionally before the other person realizes the door has closed. Their silence becomes strategy, their calm becomes armor, and their unreadability becomes power. Because they reveal so little, people project everything onto them: admiration, fear, curiosity, confusion. The INFJ watches quietly as others expose themselves in the spaces the INFJ leaves blank. In conversations, they hold back opinions until the truth reveals itself naturally. In relationships, they observe long before they commit. In conflict, they respond with unexpected calm that destabilizes those who rely on predictable reactions. And when they decide to walk away, it happens without warning, without noise, without explanation. Their exit is decisive because their decision was made long before anyone noticed the shift. What makes them truly unpredictable is not spontaneity, but depth. Their internal world is layered with intuition, emotional analysis, and strategic clarity, a private universe others never get to see. They can change direction, change boundaries, or change environments without hesitation because they are guided by inner truth, not external expectation. Their unpredictability is simply the natural expression of someone who cannot be emotionally mapped, socially controlled, or psychologically decoded. To the outside world, a Sigma INFJ is a mystery, not because they hide, but because they choose deliberately what to let through the surface. And that choice ensures they remain one step ahead, unreadable in the moments that matter, and untouchable by anyone who seeks to understand them for the wrong reasons. In the end, the greatest power of a Sigma INFJ is not what the world sees, but everything it never will. Their mystery is not an illusion. It's a shield forged from clarity, experience, and a lifetime of observing more than they ever revealed. If you felt something resonate in this video, it's because you recognized a truth you've carried quietly for years. Before you go, tap the comments and write unseen power. I want to know who stayed with me to the very end and who carries this same rare depth. And don't forget to subscribe, because missing the next video means missing the part of yourself you've never fully understood.